Did not expect this to hurt so much. Okay, so last night I went to go see JoJo Rabbit, and I had done a reaction to this video several weeks ago. I couldn't tell you exactly the date, but anyway, it's been a little while. And there had been, I remember when I did the reaction to it, that I had been reading that there were some rumblings of discontent that anyone dare make a comedy about Hitler, World War II, and stuff like that. So I watched the trailer, and I did not find it offensive in that regard at all. I feel like there's definitely a place for comedy / satire, whatever you want to call it, even with regard to subject matter that is very intense and hurtful to a lot of people. I feel like that's a tool that helps us to sort of process and come to terms with certain things that have happened throughout history, or to us, or whatever. Anyway, so I went to go see it last night, like I said, and I did not expect this movie to affect me so profoundly, and I think that's because I went into it with the feeling that it was going to be more of a lighthearted type presentation than anything else. I mean, I knew that the subject matter was dealing with very serious stuff. But I think of things like Hogan's Heroes, which I believe was like a sitcom that was based during World War II. And there were Nazis and everything, and they were presented as comedic bumbling idiots, stuff like that, which in many ways, that's exactly how the bad guys here, the Nazis, were presented as, bumbling buffoons. Certainly, even during some comedic moments when they are presented, I mean, there's it's like if something very serious is happening, but there are some comedic elements added into the scene. Despite the seriousness of it, these comedic elements sort of help take the edge off, but at the same time, not really, because you understand that the situation is life or death. So it was a weird mixture of, I saw this described as a black comedy, and that's exactly what it was. It kind of a dramedy, but I don't know, dramedy, black comedy, it's something like that. But let's just say it starts off definitely more on the lighthearted side. JoJo Rabbit is a 10-year-old boy, the little kid there in the center, living alone with his mother. The father is he's like gone off to war, and you get the sense that he's AWOL. They haven't heard from him. Maybe he's dead, or maybe he is AWOL, like I said. You find out later that, or it is definitely, you specifically find out later that he's basically sort of trying to fight in a resistance movement somewhere out of country. It's like an underground. And so, yeah, he's AWOL because he went off to help the resistance. And the mother is sheltering a little German girl in the walls of their house. And JoJo, finds this girl. It's a little bit after the movie has started. And they have, JoJo had a sister, and this girl was the sister's friend. And in a lot of ways, she looks quite a bit like the sister. JoJo, in the beginning, I was not expecting him to be so, well, I guess I can't really say I didn't expect it, but in some ways I didn't expect it, because in the trailer, you don't really notice, I don't know, the trailer is such a small snippet of the movie, but JoJo has been fairly well indoctrinated, into the whole Nazi mindset. He's a Nazi. He, has all these crazy, nonsensical ideas about Jewish people. He and his little friend, the little chubby kid with the glasses, who was comic relief in a lot of the scenes. But at the same time, at the very beginning, you can see that it's almost like he's trying to go along with it than he necessarily really inherently believes these things that he's spouting. There's a scene at the very beginning where he's at like this camp that, I guess Hitler Youth or whatever they go to, and they're training. They're going to burn books in that particular scene with the girl, the chalkboard behind her. Let's burn some books. Little stupid comedic moments like that. And there's a scene where these people that are training him put him in a situation where they want him to do something that would be extremely uncomfortable for him, very bad, Oh, shoot, sorry about that. I hate when that happens. Anyway, and you can tell that he is struggling with what they want him to do, and he does not want to do it, because at heart, he is a very good person. He's not a vile, brutal, maniac who desires to inflict harm on, living creatures and also, humans. So when he meets this girl in the walls of his house, the very first interaction between them went off much differently than I was expecting. So she's very brusque and abrupt and smacks him around a little bit, roughs him up, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, wait, that doesn't really feel like that matches with somebody who's hiding, fearing for their life, that they would treat this person this way. What if they run and tell? But then I got to thinking, well, maybe the reason why she felt like she could safely do that is because he's just a little kid. He's 10 years old. She's a teenager. She's probably about 17, I think. She's in her mid to late-ish teens. And he's just a little kid. He's very impressionable. He's easily frightened. So, once I thought about it, it was like maybe that sort of makes sense, that she felt like she could sort of like bully him into quietness, being quiet, keeping the secret that he knows she's there. But anyway, as the movie progresses and you see, that he starts to have these definitely doubts about these things that he's been led to believe, and he has interactions with his imaginary friend Hitler during different scenes, and those scenes are rather comedic and handled very well, in my opinion. Some people may feel like you just can't make comedy about this at all, but like I said, I don't agree with that, and I think it was handled in such a way that it was something that could be easily pulled off, because the subject matter revolves around a little child, and a kid is going to have those, funny, silly, little crazy thought processes and discussions like that with an imaginary friend in his head. So certainly this isn't necessarily something that you could pull off if the main protagonist of the movie was an adult. It's different with kids. And I feel like it was handled with great finesse and, in my opinion, not offensive at all. But a little bit more than halfway through the film, let's say maybe 2/3 of the way or maybe 3/4 of the way through the film, it gets a little bit progressively darker, because he starts to realize that he does not want something to happen to this girl that's hidden in the walls of their house, so he starts to, his mentality starts to definitely shift. And he wants to protect her, not just because he's afraid of what might happen to him if the secret gets out because of the threat she made, but because he cares about her as a person. And he's not a Nazi. She tells them at one point in the movie, "You're not a Nazi, JoJo. You're just a little boy who wears," what was it she said, "funny costumes and wants to fit in with the club," something like that, which was pretty accurate. But anyway, at about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the film, the story takes a seriously dark turn that I was not expecting at all. And I don't know why I went in there not thinking or anticipating that it was going to take such a dark turn, because the fundamental subject matter is very dark. And throughout the movie, you see things that are very dark. Like at one point in the movie, where he and his mother are outside, they're standing in like on the sidewalk or in the plaza area or something like that. It's actually, the picture for that is going to come around here in a second. But they're standing and they're looking at something. Now, this particular picture right here. In the trailer, it made it look like they're looking at imaginary Hitler, because right after that scene came the scene of Hitler, like spying on them, watching them, or whatever. But really what they were looking at was dead bodies that had been, or people that had been hung in the plaza, in the square there, for the public to see, like a warning. So that was certainly a dark element that had been added in. But even still, it's like, it didn't really sink into my brain that it could get very, very dark. And it did get very dark. And there is a scene in there that happens. You'll know what it is when you see it. This is the scene I'm talking about, where things shift and become super dark. And it was so freaking heartbreaking, you guys. I can't even, it's just, this one scene makes it to where I'm not sure that I really ever want to watch this movie again. And it's not because I dislike the movie. The movie is actually good, and it is worth a watch. And I highly encourage everybody to check this movie out at least once. I said that about Joker. And I said about Joker that I felt like it was just a one-watch thing. No, I'm obsessed with Joker now. I've seen it 3 times. I might go see it a 4th. But this particular movie, this thing that happens is so heartbreaking. It's just shatters your soul. I mean, it did mine. I was just bawling when it happened, because the way that they filmed it, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give it away, but just the way it was done was so effective, and just, oh, it was just so tragic. It was so sad, and I can't say anything because I'm trying to make this review be pretty much non-spoiler. So as far as, major events, the stuff that I've said already, I think maybe the only 2 things I've said that aren't really revealed in the trailer is that the father, has gone AWOL and he's like fighting in the resistance somewhere, and that he had a sister, an older sister, who passed away. Those aren't really humongozoid things, in my opinion. Anyway, so this event that happened, it gets, obviously things go on from there, and certainly the tone of the movie shifts. There is less comedy interwoven in the storytelling. There is a little bit still, but it's really, it's like a little tiny bit of comic relief to sort of help smooth things out. But to me, it wasn't enough to take away the pain from this particular scene that had happened. I was just heartbroken from the moment this scene happened to the end. I was just so sad, and it was just very tragic. And I came away from this movie just having to think about it, and I'm like, well, it's good. It's a good movie. I think people should watch it at least once, but I don't want to see it again. There are some movies that are just so tragic that, and it doesn't really have to beat you over the head with tragedy either. It's just certain things that happen in a film that can shift the way you feel about it, that it's sort of like the film as a whole has this black cloud over it in your head. I mean, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but now every time I think of this film, this particular thing is what I'm going to remember, and I'm going to remember how sad it is, and that I don't ever want to watch that again, especially this scene. Now, some things that are, I wanted to mention specifically with regard to this movie, the relationship between the mother and the son, Scarlett Johansson, and the little boy who plays JoJo. They had a very cute relationship going on. They, would tease each other, and you could tell they had great affection for each other. He truly loved her, and she truly loved him. You can see the struggle that's going on with her. She's raising this kid by herself. She's alone. She sees her child that has been influenced by this ideology that she vehemently disagrees with, not necessarily on the surface, because it's dangerous to do that, but you can see how it troubles her. to see her son being taken up with this sort of thing that she knows is very bad. And I feel like they handled that particular subject matter in a very touching way, very effective. It was well done, and I have no complaints there. Scarlett Johansson as an actress has grown on me somewhat over the years. I started off not, she was just okay, and then the more I watched her, the less I liked her, because I kind of sensed this sort of underlying egotism about her that would kind of come outward in her performances, and that was a huge turnoff for me. And that really became apparent when she showed up in Iron Man 2 as Black Widow, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to watch her in all these movies, and I just didn't like her at all. But when I watched Endgame, I started to, and I don't know, maybe it's because of what happened to her character, I found myself being very sad about what happened to her character, even though I would have thought, I'd be glad that we're not going to see her anymore. But no, it had the opposite effect, and I felt like her acting in Endgame was really well done, especially the scenes where she was showing a lot of emotion, like at the beginning when she's at the Avengers headquarters or whatever, and she's getting very emotional about, the situation. And she did a decent job in here. She's pretty good. I think she did. She conveyed the struggle fairly well of what her character was going through. And the little boy JoJo, oh my goodness, this kid, you guys, this was his first movie. He's so good in here, and he was so, like, his little face. And so the scenes that were happening, especially like at the beginning when he's at the little camp and they're trying to train him, and he's kind of like sort of overwhelmed by everything that's going on, and you can see he's trying to be brave, but he's petrified, and it's just he was so good. This kid has a bright future as far as I'm concerned. There was absolutely nothing at all negative that I can say about his performance in this movie. Super, super well done. Taika Waititi, I found out after I did the reaction to the trailer that he is actually Jewish heritage. So someone in the comments section of my reaction video that I had done mentioned that was like a big FU to Hitler, which is really hilarious that this guy would be playing him, and it is in a lot of ways. It's a huge FU, and I found it quite hilarious. His performance was hilarious in here. It's worth watching for that at least, but just also the overall package and this kid, his performance. It's definitely worth watching for that. And I don't know, maybe it's just me and I'm more sensitive about things. I don't like to be sad, and I don't like to cry, when I see movies. I can't stand it. It's not that I feel like it's a weak emotion and I think it's silly to express that. It's not that at all. I just don't like to be sad. And this movie made me sad. And it makes me sad to think about it. Sorry, my tongue twisting. So, that's primarily why I'm not really going to probably ever watch this again. But please do check it out at least once. If you don't mind being sad, it shouldn't bother you too much. If you do mind it, maybe at least just one viewing will be okay. It certainly is subject matter that I believe is, worth thinking about, and these different complex layers that are going on in this story. And I think it was good, and I do agree with the high reviews that this movie has gotten, both by the critics and by the audience. And I can't think of anything else to add to it at this point, so I think I'm going to just wrap this up now and watch me remember something after I've stopped recording. But whatever it is, I'll either put it in the video or put it in the description or comments. So I'm going to wrap up this long-winded, rambly thing, and see you in the next video. Bye.